how I won a free Prismatic Evolutions ETB. This past weekend, I attended a league challenge at Rose Poke in Painesville, Ohio, and I heard the prizing was a Prismatic Burst ETB, and I knew I had to get my hands on this. One thing I wasn't expecting was 24 players. Normally in my area, League Cups, which are a larger form of event, larger than challenges, usually get somewhere between 12 to 18 people. This one had 24. And while I expected more people because of the prizing, this one kind of threw me for a loop. The event ended up being 5 rounds, which is a lot of Pokemon for a league challenge, but as someone who's played at regionals and day 2'd regionals in the past, I was up for the challenge. Now, I brought good old faithful Raging Bolt to this tournament, and it went really well. Now, my matches were mostly kind of what I expected to play against, where I played first round was a Turbo Roaring Moon deck, and then rounds 2 and 3, I played Regidrago, which are really what I expected. I think most people in this format at this point, this late in the format, are either going to play a deck that is Regidrago or a deck that beats Regidrago. And being a deck that kind of has a 50-50 or better matchup against both those sides of the category, I felt really well positioned in this tournament. One thing I wasn't expecting was a lot of Gardevoir. I played a lot of Gardevoir. I ended up playing rounds 4 and 5 for the championship against 2 Gardevoir decks. I was lucky and able to navigate those matchups really well, in my opinion, and I ended up taking home the trophy and this really cool ETB, a lot of other prizing, but mainly I think everyone was there for the Prismatic Evolutions ETB. Round 1 against Turbo Moon kind of went how I expected. I was able to take the first 2 prize knockout, and from there, it's basically just they punch you, you punch them back and forth until someone takes 6 prizes. Luckily for me, I was able to do so. Rounds 2 and 3 kind of went the same way. If you're able to take a 2 prize knockout, you win. If you're not, you lose. And that matchup, I think, gets a lot more difficult than people think, just because of how difficult it is to take 2, 2, and 2 against Regidrago when they have attackers. I think a lot of players in this matchup overthink it and think it's just very simple for the Bolt player. It's just 2, 2, 2. But there's a lot of things the Regidrago players can do to make the Raging Bolt player's life a lot more difficult. One thing they can do is target the Ogre Pawns. That makes it really hard for Bolt to draw all those cards and get to 15 card hands turn after turn after turn, even if they're Ionoing you every time, even if they're constantly disrupting your hand, bumping Pokestop with jamming Tower or whatever the case may be. But from a Bolt player's perspective, I think you try to just take what they're giving you, right? If they feed you a Squawkabilly, don't gust for the Ogre Pawn unless it's something that you can really just play them out of the game with. But unless you're able to do that, just take your 2, right? Take your 2, play for the end game, because you're going to need gusts at some point in this game. So burning your Prime Catcher just to kill an Ogre Pawn, or maybe their only Regidrago, isn't always the play. With a deck that runs that much energy switch, that much acceleration of energy with the Teal Mask Ogre Pawns, you want to just take what the other opponent is giving you and save those gusts for when they promote a 1 prizer and expect you to have that gust. So if you burn your gust early, you're in a bad spot, or if you burn your gust late, got a better chance to win. Rounds 4 and 5, I played both a Gardevoir deck, which was, again, not something I was expecting at all in this tournament, but you kind of got to roll with the punches, I guess, right? So those Gardevoir decks are both the newer variant, where there's no rare candy, it's a lot slower, and they both run ways to trap you with the Mawile that doesn't let you retreat. So if you burn all your switch cards, they can just Mawile Tempting Trap Greninja or Squawk or Fez, and basically just not let you attack, and you just mill yourself out. So you need to be aware of that and kind of play slower, but also fast. So it's a lot of resource conservation in a way that makes sense for your deck. Luckily, one of the big weaknesses of this Guardy variant versus the faster Guardy variants that rely on rare candy, if you can force them to not have a Kirlia back up when you kill the Gardevoir, you basically buy yourself a turn, and usually that means you're going to win the game. Luckily for me, in both those matchups, that's exactly what I was able to do. By basically prioritizing knocking out Kirlias, Ralts, and Gardevoirs, and not necessarily focusing on the attackers, you make it so they can't take big knockouts turn after turn after turn, giving yourself a chance to play catch up while also taking big 2 prize knockouts on your Gardevoirs. Overall, I was super happy with how I played personally. Obviously, there were some things I definitely want to tweak and improve, and kind of situational things where I need to do different things to give myself a better chance. As someone who's been playing Raging Bolt the entire season, basically, I think this deck is great. I think it's a great play for San Antonio. And personally, it's probably the deck I'm going to play, if not this exact same 60 card list I'm about to share with you. So looking at my Raging Bolt list versus other Raging Bolt lists, it's honestly not that much different. I'm running 4 Raging Bolts. I'm running 3 Teal Mask Ogre Pawns. I'm running the Slitherwing, Radiant Greninja, Squawkabilly Fez. There's a little bit of variance with the Iron Bundle. I think Iron Bundle's really good in matchups where, especially with cards such as Iron Thorns in format, when you need to be able to gust that out of the active to gain access to your abilities again. That is very strong. It kind of gives you a 5th gust, a 4th or 5th gust, depending on how you're looking at it with the Iron Bundle there. The energy is also pretty standard, 5-3-3. I think 5 is fine. It does force you to be a little more careful with your grass energies when you're deciding whether or not to Ultra Ball them away, discard them to go grab something different when you're working on charging up your Teal Mask Ogre Pawns. But I think overall 5 is a pretty good one. If you're not too confident with that, you can still run the 6th. Totally up to you. But I like going to the 5th one. That way it gives me more opportunity to go in with another trainer, more tech cards, more consistency. But I think 5 has been pretty good for me. This is also pretty standard. 2 switch carts. 4 Nest Ball, 4 Earthen Vessel, 4 Sadas. Kind of the tech cards I run in here. Lost Vacuum, really strong for Gardevoir. Really strong for Heroes Capes and those control matchups. Things of that nature really makes it so you're able to do a lot more against your opponent. I am running 3 Pokemon Catchers, 3 Pokestops, 3 Energy Retrievals. Again, very standard. My ace spec of choice. I like the Prime Catcher. Something I had messed around with a lot was the Secret Box, but I think just the raw ability and power of the Prime Catcher to be able to kind of pick and choose your matchups to knock out things is just so important for this deck. I run 1 copy of Iono, and honestly, this is probably like my 60th card in the list. I think you just need some kind of a hand disruption, like if you need it early or late. Honestly, it can also be really good mid-game if I'm able to leave a bolt with an energy after my attack and they're not able to gust that up. Being able to refresh my hand if I just really have nothing playable is really strong. I'm only running 2 copies of Pokegear as well as the trekking shoes. This list is very similar to Vincent Owen's top 4 Toronto list, so I feel really good with that as well. Usually if I'm whiffing a turn, especially turn 1, it's not because I'm not finding a Sada, it's because I'm not having an energy in the discard. So that's why I think running 2 of each of these is fine. And I think 2 Night Stretcher has been pretty standard since the card came out in Shrouded Fable. I think just the ability to get back your energy or your Pokemon is just so strong. I'm also running 1 copy of Briar. This card is basically the only way you can beat Charizard decks. So I think you really need that, especially because I think looking at San Antonio Regionals, I think we're going to have around 8 to 10% of Charizard, and I think it swings the matchup from like 80-20 to more probably 55-45 or 50-50. It really just comes down to they're going to constantly be disrupting your hand, so were you able to get out of that however you can. I'm also running again 4 Sadas. Deck runs on Sada, you got to play the max. 1 copy of Ultra Ball, just have another discard out for those early energy. Also another Pokemon search option. Seems really strong. Pal Pad to help you get back Ionos, Briars, Sadas on those Pokestop mills. It's going to happen at some point, so don't worry about it. You got a way to get out of that. The only other card I play 2 copies of in this list are Bravery Charm. I think Bravery Charm is really strong, especially against Drago. If they don't have the Executor, you can kind of force that Gust, because them hitting 290 is really tough, and the only card that can do that, unless they have Jamming Tower in play, but if you can get rid of Jamming Tower, we are playing 3 stops, so stadium move on your part is pretty easy to do. But the Bravery Charm is really strong, really makes your opponent kind of have to do an extra step that sometimes if you can get them to whiff, kind of can make the matchup free. So that is my list. I think, again, this list is so strong, and I'm very excited about where this deck can be, and I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all on the next one. And do not forget, I do live stream on Twitch, so make sure y'all check out all the links in the description down below. See y'all later. Peace. Peace out.